Airlines worldwide are rolling out emergency measures and rescheduling flights after a power outage shuts down London's Heathrow Airport, triggering global travel chaos. In Hong Kong, the Housing Authority to clamp down on well-off tenants living in public housing units by doubling the rent and even eviction in some cases. And police have arrested the parents of two small boys on suspicion of child neglect after the children climbed out of the window of their fourth-floor flat in Fanling. Good evening. You're watching Cable News. I'm Jeremy Chu. The closure of Heathrow Airport in London has triggered a global travel disruption, and flights heading in and out of England continue to face diversions or delays. The airfield in the British capital was shuttered due to a power outage caused by a fire at an electrical substation nearby. Sachin Kadvi reports.
The ripple effects of shutting down the busiest airport in Europe could be felt in Hong Kong, where Cathay Pacific Airways cancelled 2 departures to London. An earlier Cathay flight, which left for the English capital at 8:10 a.m. today, was asked to return back after authorities at Heathrow announced the closure. CX251 and CX255, which had departed for London last night, were diverted to Amsterdam. Cathay has urged passengers to check for more details on the company's website before heading to the airport. The fate of a British Airways flight heading back to London tonight also remains uncertain. Implications of the closure at Heathrow are being felt worldwide, as more than 1,350 flights to and from the airport were cancelled today. Roads heading to Heathrow have been blocked, and passengers have been advised of a significant disruption over the coming days. Earlier this morning, power supply to Heathrow Airport was disrupted after a fire broke out at an electrical substation in the town of Hayes near London. Almost 5,000 homes in the surrounding area were also left without power, and 150 people had to be evacuated. Sachin Kadvi, Cable News.
The Housing Authority has rolled out stringent reforms targeting higher-income tenants in public housing, mandating steep rent hikes and stricter eviction thresholds in a bid to prioritize subsidized homes for the city's neediest families. Quentin Yang has the details.
Under the revised policy, effective October next year, tenants exceeding income limits will face tiered rent increases based on their earnings. Those earning 2 to 3 times the income cap will see rents jump to 2.5 times the original rate. Households earning 3 to 4 times the limit will pay 3.5 times the base rent, while those at 4 to 5 times will face a 4.5-fold increases, a 125% spike. Finally, families earning 5 times the income cap must vacate immediately. Those paying additional rents for 4 years or exceeding 4 times the limit for 2 consecutive years will also face eviction. The authority defended its decision not to lower the eviction threshold for wealthier tenants, citing Hong Kong's tight rental market. We've already raised rents for wealthier households, with fewer smaller rental units and the need to accommodate overseas talent. Now is not the time to relax eviction rules, said Clarissa Wong, chairwoman of the HA Subsidized Housing Committee. To encourage voluntary relocation, tenants who surrender their units will retain green form eligibility for 4 years, granting priority access to subsidized home ownership scheme flats. However, stricter penalties will also apply. False declarations about income or property ownership could result in 5-year bans from public housing and legal consequences. The reforms aim to alleviate pressure on the public housing system, burdened by over 250,000 families on waiting lists. Officials note that, even after hikes, rents for wealthier tenants will average 11% of household income, well below the 20% median for private housing. Quentin Yang, Cable News.
A heart-pounding scene was spotted today in Fanling as 2 young boys in Queens Hill Estate were rescued by police and firefighters after climbing out of their flat window. The boys were unharmed, but their parents, who were asleep during that time, were arrested for child neglect. Quentin Yang again has the story.
At around 10:30 a.m., police received multiple reports of two boys sitting on the window ledge of a fourth-floor flat in Wanlock House. Officers and firefighters quickly arrived at the scene and brought the 3- and 5-year-old boys to safety. They were taken to North District Hospital for checkups and found to be unharmed. Initial investigation suggests the older boy, who had been upset the previous night, took keys to unlock the window grille and climbed out with his younger brother while their parents were still asleep. Yang, Cable News.
Residents should pay more attention while using the road as Hong Kong police will launch a citywide enforcement blitz targeting traffic violations starting next week, following a sharp 40% year-on-year rise in road fatalities during the first 2.5 months of 2024. Best Learn reports.
At least 23 people died in traffic accidents during the first 2.5 months of this year, with pedestrians accounting for nearly a third of the deaths, according to official data released today. The spike marks a worrying reversal from 2024, when the city recorded a historic low of 88 traffic deaths despite over 18,000 reported accidents. Authorities attribute the recent casualties to reckless behaviors such as jaywalking, pedestrians darting between vehicles, and driver violations. 7 pedestrian deaths this year were linked to illegal road crossing practices, according to the police. The rebound in fatalities demands immediate action, a police spokeswoman stated, emphasizing that officers will conduct unpredictable, high-intensity operations across all districts to curb speeding, red light running, and failure to yield to pedestrians. The campaign will deploy mobile units at accident-prone zones without prior notice. Best Learn, Cable News.
Former chairman of the disbanded Democratic Party, Lo King-hei, was definitively acquitted of unlawful assembly charges today after the High Court dismissed a government appeal to overturn his earlier acquittal linked to the 2019 PolyU protests. Yang reports.
The ruling ends a years-long legal battle stemming from a mass demonstration outside the Hong Kong Polytechnic University during the city's social unrest 6 years ago. Lo was among the 9 individuals charged for allegedly gathering near PolyU on November 18, 2019, to support students surrounded by police during a prolonged standoff. Although prosecutors argue the group's presence constituted unlawful assembly, a district court acquitted Lo in 2022, citing insufficient evidence of intent to incite unrest. The Department of Justice appealed, claiming Lo's prominence as a political figure at the scene had an objective effect of encouraging protesters. However, the appellate judges upheld the acquittal, emphasizing that mere presence does not prove intent. Speaking outside court, Lo expressed relief, but acknowledged the strain of the prolonged case. Years of uncertainty made it exhausting to plan work or personal life. Now I can finally breathe easier, though there's still much to handle, Lo said, adding that he would keep a level head when facing any future legal challenges. Yang, Cable News.
The government has gazetted amendments to empower the Electoral Affairs Commission to use electronic vote counting for functional constituencies in the upcoming Legislative Council election on the 7th of December. Modeled after the Election Committee constituency elections will allow the use of vote counting machines for functional constituencies. They also relax requirements for polling station officers, who will no longer need to prepare separate ballot account forms for each constituency. Additionally, due to the reduction in district council constituencies, adjustments will be made to the boundaries of Legislative Council geographical constituencies. The draft bill will be tabled for its first reading in the Legislative Council next Wednesday. Authorities will work closely with the Electoral Affairs Commission to prepare for the upcoming elections. Specific election arrangements will be announced later. Shares in Hong Kong ended the day and the week on a sour note as the benchmark index retreated for a second day. The Hang Seng Index tracked its counterparts in the mainland and extended its losses in the afternoon to 650 points at one point. At close, the benchmark index tumbled 530 points or 2.2%, accumulating its losses to more than 1,000 points in 2 days, and once again dropped below the 24,000 mark. Daily turnover jumped to $339 billion, driven by FTSE All-World Index rebalancing taking effect after market close. For the week, the Hang Seng Index slid 270 points, extending the losses to a second week. Technology stocks led the fall, with Alibaba dipping 3.5% and Kuaishou slumping 5%. Meituan slid 0.3% before results announcement. The mainland's largest delivery platform said its earnings jumped 1.8 times to 6.22 billion Chinese yuan last quarter, well below market estimates, with revenue growing 20% in line with expectations. For the whole year, adjusted profits and revenue grew 88% and 22% respectively. Meanwhile, auto stocks saw some sell-off, with BYD and NIO Auto both plummeting over 7%. Chip stocks also felt the pain, mostly diving more than 5%. The number of compulsory winding up petitions in the city set a 3-month new high in February. According to data from the official receiver's office, 65 wind-up petitions were filed last month, up 25% from January and 22.6% from a year ago. Moreover, the court had issued 66 winding-up orders, up 13.7% month-on-month and 83.3% from a year ago, logging a new high in nearly 15.5 years. Meanwhile, 787 personal bankruptcy applications were logged last month, down 3.9% from January and up 21.4% from last year. Onto the weather now. Fine and very dry tomorrow with a minimum temperature of around 17 degrees. Expect a warm and sunny weekend with light northeasterly winds. That's our news tonight. I'm Jeremy Chu. Thank you for watching and good night.